Hello, bizarrely brilliant family. We're back with another deep dive into the world of the extraordinary. Today, we're tackling a topic that's been making headlines and sparking debates worldwide. What actually happens to corrupt cops when they are arrested? Now, we've all seen the movies and TV shows, but how does it play out in real life? Are the consequences as severe as they should be? Or does the system protect its own? In this video, we're going to unravel the truth backed by facts and expert insights. So, buckle up as we navigate the complex and often murky waters of law enforcement and accountability. And remember, if you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Before we begin, we must ask, what is the definition of corrupt? According to Merriam-Webster, corrupt is to change from good to bad in morals, manners, or actions. You see, when it comes to morals, it's not quite black and white. With that being said, not every police officer is deemed corrupt in the court of public opinion. I'm not here to share my political views. I'm simply researching and sharing with you what happens to corrupt police officers when they're arrested. Why don't you comment below and tell me your thoughts? Derek Chauvin, a name that has been etched in the records of American history due to a tragic event. Our story begins with a man who dedicated years of his life to law enforcement and the United States Army Reserve. But Chauvin's career was not without controversy. He amassed a history of complaints and disciplinary actions that raised eyebrows and question marks. In 2006, he was involved in a shooting, a troubling incident that was only the beginning of a series of events that would mar his record. 2 years later, in 2008, he was implicated in a domestic violence incident, further tarnishing his reputation. But it didn't stop there. In 2017, he assaulted a 14-year-old boy, an act that would foreshadow the tragic events that would later catapult him into the global spotlight. These incidents, among others, painted a picture of a man with a troubled past. But none could predict just how significant a role Derek Chauvin was destined to play in a larger narrative. Chauvin, a figure with a troubled past, was about to become a crucial part of a larger narrative. On May 25, 2020, Chauvin's actions would trigger a wave of protests across the United States and worldwide. The day started out as any other for George Floyd, but it ended in a tragedy that would shake the world. Former police officer Derek Chauvin arrested Floyd on suspicion of passing a counterfeit $20 bill. During the arrest, Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for approximately 9 minutes, a move that ultimately led to Floyd's death. This incident, captured on video and shared globally, ignited widespread outrage and sparked protests in cities across the United States and around the world. People from all walks of life rallied together, demanding justice for George Floyd and calling for an end to systemic racism and police brutality. The impact of this incident reached far beyond Minneapolis, transcending borders and cultures. It became a rallying cry for change, a catalyst for a global movement demanding justice and equality. The incident would lead to a trial that reverberated around the world. In 2021, a verdict was reached that would mark a significant moment in the fight for racial justice. Derek Chauvin, the former Minneapolis police officer, was put on trial for the murder of George Floyd. The case gripped the nation, as people awaited the outcome with bated breath. Chauvin was charged with second-degree murder, third-degree murder, and second-degree manslaughter. This was a rare instance of a police officer being held accountable for the use of excessive force, making it a landmark case in the struggle for racial equality. After a tense trial, the jury returned with their verdict. Chauvin was found guilty on all counts. The conviction was met with an outpouring of emotion from the public, who saw this as a significant step towards justice. The sentencing phase followed the conviction. The judge handed down a sentence of 22.5 years in prison to Chauvin. This was one of the longest sentences given to a former police officer for use of deadly force. The sentencing brought a measure of justice, but the story was far from over. In 2023, Chauvin would make headlines again, this time from behind bars. While serving his sentence, Chauvin was subjected to a harsh reality check, a brutal reminder of the world outside the protective shield of his former profession. In a violent incident, he was stabbed by another inmate. The incident, a reflection of the deep-seated anger and resentment towards Chauvin, brought him back into the limelight even within the confines of prison walls. This attack underscores the intense emotions and divisions Chauvin's actions have stirred, both within society and amongst his fellow inmates. It serves as an alarming indication that the ripple effects of his actions continue to resonate, extending beyond courtrooms and city streets, reaching even the shadowy corners of prison cells. His story does not end with a sentencing or a prison attack. Instead, it continues to evolve, a grim narrative underlining the pressing need for justice and reform in law enforcement. Despite being incarcerated, Chauvin continues to be a figure of contention and discussion, highlighting the ongoing struggle for justice and reform. Meet Jason Van Dyke, a former Chicago police officer whose career took a grim turn. Before he became a household name, Van Dyke served in the Chicago Police Department, a tenure marked by a series of citizen complaints. His record was marred with allegations of excessive force and the reckless use of firearms. Despite these red flags, his service continued, painting a picture of a man who seemed to operate with impunity. Van Dyke's reputation was not one of a model officer. In fact, his history with the department was fraught with accusations. Numerous complaints were filed against him, the majority of which revolved around his reported aggressiveness and disregard for protocol. His actions were not without consequence, however, as they foreshadowed a much larger issue at hand: his propensity for violence. Van Dyke's history of citizen complaints was a dark omen, leading to a tragic event that would forever change his life, and the life of one young man. In the late hours of October 20th, 2014, a confrontation between Van Dyke and a young African-American teenager named Laquan McDonald would spiral into a deadly encounter. The official police reports initially painted a picture of McDonald as an erratic individual, allegedly lunging at officers with a knife. This narrative seemed to justify Van Dyke's decision to shoot, a decision that would tragically end McDonald's life. However, as the months rolled on, a video emerged that told a markedly different story. The footage, released over a year after the incident, depicted McDonald walking away from officers when Van Dyke unleashed a barrage of bullets, firing 16 shots in a matter of seconds. Shockwaves were sent through the community, the city, and the nation as a result of the striking difference between the official account and the reality that was captured on video. This incident, captured on video, sparked outrage and protests against police violence, putting Van Dyke and the Chicago Police Department under intense scrutiny. Van Dyke was subsequently charged with first-degree murder, marking the first time an on-duty Chicago police officer was held accountable for the killing of an African-American young man. The charges were significant, not just in their severity, but in the statement they made about the value of Black lives and the accountability of law enforcement. As the trial unfolded, it was clear this was not a typical case. After a tense and highly scrutinized court proceeding, Van Dyke was found guilty, but not of first-degree murder as initially charged. Instead, he was convicted of second-degree murder and aggravated battery. This conviction was a profound moment, a signal that law enforcement officers could and would be held responsible for their actions. Van Dyke was sentenced to 7 years in state prison, a term that many saw as a step towards justice, while others felt it fell short of the gravity of his crimes. Yet, another twist in the tale was his early release, an event that stirred mixed emotions among the public and rekindled debates about justice and equality. His conviction marked a significant moment in the fight against police violence and systemic racism within law enforcement. The events that transpired in Van Dyke's life after his conviction were completely unexpected. A brutal assault occurred against him while he was serving his sentence in prison, which was a remarkable variation to his previous position as a law enforcement officer. This event further amplified the contentious atmosphere surrounding his case. Yet despite the turbulence, Van Dyke was released earlier than expected after serving less than half of his 7-year sentence. In another surprising development, federal prosecutors chose not to bring additional charges against him. This decision, reached in consultation with McDonald's family, was influenced by the high threshold set by federal law for conviction. It's important to note that this choice was not taken lightly, and was carefully considered with respect for the family's wishes and the complex legal landscape. Yet, the ripple effects of Van Dyke's actions continue to be felt. His case sparked a nationwide conversation about police violence, systemic racism, and the desperate need for reform within law enforcement. Van Dyke's story serves as a glaring reminder of the urgent need for police reform and the ongoing fight against systemic racism within law enforcement. Although these are only 2 cases, these 2 cases are extreme. Most corrupt police officers that are caught and sentenced generally serve their time with no issues. This is because the system does well to either keep their incarceration location a secret, they keep them segregated from general population, or they are sent to a low security level facility. If you found this video informative, please be sure to leave a like and a sub to Bizarrely Brilliant. If you have any ideas on what our next video should be about, please leave a comment below, and I'll do my best to make it happen.